everyone, I'm Chabeli. I'm a board certified anesthesiologist assistant, and this week I'm taking PTO and I'm with my family here in Puerto Rico, and I'm with my sister here who works in the tech field, and we want to go over some of the differences in our lifestyle overall as a tech worker from home and as a healthcare worker that goes to the hospital every day. So if you're interested in that, keep on watching and let me know if you want to see more videos like this. I'm also going to be having my brother here who just graduated from college moderating the talk. He's actually taking a job in Japan, which is really fun and interesting, and hopefully we get to visit him within the next year, but he'll be moderating some of the conversation here.
To get us started, would you guys like to speak on your educational background? For example, your schooling, was a bachelor's necessary for your job?
Yes, so for my job, I had to do a 4 years bachelor's degree. It could be quicker, but I completed mine in 4 years, and then I applied and I did a master's program for about 2.5 years. And within my master's program, I worked in the hospital as a student, and after that I started working. So bachelor's, then master's.
I got my bachelor's also 4 years, and then after that I started looking for tech jobs. So all I needed was my bachelor's. I know some people that do it without getting a bachelor's. I know some people that have more than a bachelor's, but I just have my bachelor's.
For this education, what would you say the cost associated with it was?
My bachelor's was in an affordable college, so I didn't really have to pay much. I worked jobs, had scholarships, and I think my parents helped a little bit with some of the tuition costs. I lived at home with my family for the 4 years, so my undergraduate college was paid out. There was no debt from that. And then for my master's program, I had over $120,000 in debt. The tuition for that was, I think, around $100,000 for my master's program.
And we got the educational cost.
I got a scholarship that basically paid for everything that I would need for my school, and my school was also a need-based school, so 100% of the costs that your family couldn't meet, my school was meant to cover that. Outside of schooling, that was basically covered. I worked 3 jobs during college to pay for lifestyle things, so because I like to go out with my friends, and scholarship pays for tuition and schooling and housing and stuff like that, but not really what you want to do outside of school. So I worked 3 jobs to make sure that I could also do other things and could start saving for future life.
Cool, sounds great. Sounds like you guys both paid a lot for your education and it paid off. So how did you find these jobs?
I had graduated with a degree in science in one of the hard sciences. I went through a whole journey of wanting to be more in healthcare, and I just searched jobs on the internet and looked for the prerequisites, and I shadowed and I applied for the anesthesiologist assistant program in between my gap years. I had been considering medical school, but then I went for a different direction. Within my schooling, I went to a couple of different hospitals, and in the hospitals rotated, and I also had a network with my school, so my school ended up posting some of the jobs, and I reached out to those jobs, and I took 2 jobs from kind of my school's postings, and that's where I've been working.
Vita, how would you say you found your job?
I always wanted to work from home, and this was pre-pandemic because I like to travel a lot and I wanted to be able to work remotely from other places. So I looked at this website called Built-In. Built-In has a website for Seattle, for New York, for a lot of different cities, and there's one specifically for New York, which is the one that I was looking for because I was living in New York at the time. And so I went on Built-In New York City. My filters were unlimited PTO, entry level, and I don't remember, maybe like something else, but from that I came across a tech company and I started at a workplace experience role. So that is how I found it. I was just looking on Built-In New York City for something that could allow me to work from home because that's what I wanted to do, be able to travel and do that.
So it sounds like you guys were able to find the jobs that you currently have now through various means. Now, when you talk about work from home, Lupita, I'll start with you. How is it that you're able to separate work from home between just being at home and that sort of environment of finding a balance between work and play?
I have a second room, luckily, and it hasn't always been the case, depends on where you're living. When I was living in New York, I definitely was working from the same room that I was living my life in. So the balance there it was hard to separate because it's all in the same spot, and my room was very small because New York City housing is ridiculous. That's a whole other topic. But for now that I'm in a different place, the 2 rooms has been a great kind of separation from life because as soon as work is done, I walk away and it's a whole different room. Definitely easier to separate work from home when it's 2 different spots, which isn't always the case, but luckily right now that is for me.
Speaking on that, you kind of mentioned, and like me, we've been in our positions for almost a year, at least for me almost a year, and then you've been doing the work from home for over a year now, so you would say that now it's easier to just step away from work and like shut it off.
Yeah, like at first it's hard because you're trying to establish yourself and making sure people know that, like, you know, in your new team that you're like a hard worker and all those things. And now that I feel more established in it, I am more comfortable being able to walk away at the end of the workday because I know that my work ethic speaks for itself and that people can see it. So now it's definitely also more balanced because I've been in my role for longer and I've been working from home for longer too, so I've been able to build better habits.
I would say like same for me. In the beginning, I would be stressed out thinking about my day a lot, and slowly I've been getting more comfortable leaving things at work or thinking about my decision making. I do like to reflect on my decisions throughout the day when I go home, but lately I've been feeling more comfortable and more trusting in terms of my decisions. So it's again taking time, but I think it's easier now, almost a year out, to separate that.
It's wonderful. Thank you guys for sharing. Now, in terms of a really interesting topic that I'm sure your viewers want to know about, how much PTO do you get in your work for a year?
In terms of PTO, I think most places start at least with 5 weeks. When I was a student, that's kind of what I was hearing, around the minimum of 5 weeks. A lot of other companies I heard were around 6 weeks, and I think one of the highest starting PTO that I had heard of was around 7 weeks. And those were in places that wanted to get, you know, talent to go to those places, so they always have more competitive packages. My job has about 6 weeks, and some places have 6 weeks and then you don't work holidays, and my job actually has something where you don't work holidays but they reschedule you during the week. So we have shift schedules, so they can put us on different shifts for that week. So if I work an 8-hour shift on Monday, but Monday nobody's working that day because of the holiday, then I am put onto a 10-hour shift, and that's distributed into the 40 hours. So we still kind of get holidays off and we have our 6 weeks, but we'll still complete our fulfillment of that 40-hour work week for that week. So it's really nice. 6 weeks I think is plenty as well. We'll kind of get into those thoughts later.
Bita, how much PTO do you get in a year?
I have unlimited flexible PTO, so there's not really a limit number-wise. As long as you are able to manage your workload and like your work doesn't falter, then you're allowed to take PTO flexibly. At the same time, it's not like I can just take off 1 month straight, right? Because then I'm not getting my work done. So it's really just using your best judgment with a policy like that. And I will say it also depends on different tech companies use unlimited PTO or market unlimited PTO different. And also sometimes it varies by your team or even your department. Currently I have unlimited PTO and I've been using it flexibly, so it's been really nice.
That you were saying that you have blocks of people that you work with, so you try not to overlap.
The role that I have is cyclical, so I tend to work with the same customers for 6 to 8 weeks. So if I'm thinking about my PTO and how I schedule my PTO is making sure that the customers that I'm working with in this 6 to 8 weeks don't see that I'm on PTO for that long, right? So if I'm taking a long PTO during this cycle, I should probably wait until the next cycle and the next cohort of customers to do a longer PTO like that. So making sure that, again, your work doesn't falter, you're still doing what you have to do. And for me, that's making sure that if I'm taking a long PTO, I'm cycling it out. Maybe I'm doing that every 3 months or something. But then complementing with maybe like 1 day every once in a while, like a weekday, or maybe giving myself a long weekend when it makes sense.
So that sounds like how you schedule your specific PTO, something dynamic. For Chirelli, you said you had 6 weeks of PTO, but how exactly would you schedule those 6 weeks?
Not all companies, but my company particularly, at one point in the year before, we had to pick most of our weeks. We didn't have to pick every single week, but we had a minimum pick this number of weeks for the next year. For example, in the fall of the year before that, I picked out all of my weeks for this year. And you also have to make sure that there's coverage. Once certain weeks are picked out, it may be harder to change, but you can still change certain weeks. For me, it's kind of planning ahead, and so that's how we were able to plan for this family vacation, because I knew I had this particular week off. And I was lucky enough that, you know, everyone else could coordinate on their behalf to take the time off to be on the same week. It can take more planning, but it's also nice because it does allow for me to take off like 3 weeks at a time if there's enough coverage for that. There's no repeat patient that I have. Sometimes I do have the same patients, but a lot of the times, hopefully people aren't getting surgeries back to back for multiple weeks. So I can take, I would say, chunks of time off without having an issue as long as there's coverage, which is nice. So if I would like to plan for a bigger trip at some point, it's possible. That's something to consider. Like, I do see the ability to go to another country and be on PTO for 3 weeks at a time, but I would say someone in the tech field could do that and work from home and be in a different country too. So something to consider.
How realistic is it that you would enjoy all the PTO that you're afforded?
I think it depends sometimes on the company, but where I'm at right now, I absolutely enjoy every second because I have a supportive team, and I also am, very communicative before I go on PTO. So it's also about preparing for PTO and just letting people know, hey, I'm going to be out of the office from this day to this day. While I'm out, you can reach out to XYZ. If you need anything from me, make sure to keep a track of whatever you need from me, and then when I'm back, we can touch base about it. So making sure that before I'm going on PTO, I'm preparing in every single detail, making sure that everyone knows my out of office plan, so that when I'm out, I'm not, being bombarded with any emails or anything like that. I don't have my email on my phone, and I delete Slack on my phone before vacation, so I can really enjoy it. So absolutely enjoy every moment of it. But again, might depend on company, might depend on team. And in this moment, as long as I'm preparing ahead of time, I definitely can enjoy every second of my PTO.
For this team, you would say that unlimited, you are feeling kind of the unlimited.
I'm feeling the unlimitedness, the flexibleness, the enjoyment, all of it is a good time.
But overall team dependent, but you've gotten the right team, it sounds like.
I've gotten the right team, and I do think that from other people at my company, other people I've talked to, I think other teams have also been pretty good. So I think that this company specifically is pretty good at it. Others might be just slightly different.
Okay, and Joy, how realistic is it that you would enjoy all the PTO that you're afforded?
I think it's very realistic, and sometimes they'll even ask us, like, can someone take a day off here? They want us to take that time and take advantage of our PTO, and we also have the ability to roll over, so that's what I honestly feel like I want to roll some over, because I've gotten to the point where I feel comfortable with my job where I don't necessarily feel like I want a week-long break all the time. So I think I want to roll over into bigger trips for the next year. So I do feel like I have the ability to take advantage of everything.
We've talked about our PTOs or your PTOs and the policy surrounding them. We haven't really talked about whether you can roll over PTOs. And so from next year to the coming year, or Lupita, from one season to the next season, can you roll over your PTO?
Yeah, so for me, definitely, because it's a set number. At least with my company, every company might be different, where they want you to take all of it at once. And some companies will not allow you to take PTO until you have accrued that time. But for mine, it's from the beginning. You basically have all the weeks set. And so I can say I don't want to take the last 2 weeks, and I plan on rolling them over so that I can take a bigger trip next year.
I think because it's unlimited, it's slightly different than rolling over, but
like, it's unlimited.
You can't roll over.
You can't roll over.
Okay, yeah, I can't roll over. In terms of maybe I took a long 2-week break around December, the holidays, which my company doesn't close for the holidays, right? So if I'm taking a 2-week break during this holiday season, maybe I won't be doing that during the next holiday season because someone else on my team might have to. That's something that I was considering at my last company. I haven't been here long enough to really know what the end of year kind of process is, but kind of just trying to be fair with the way that I'm scheduling it, and in terms of rolling over, just thinking about
the distribution. So
the distribution of PTO. Holiday coverage, I guess we'll see. I don't know. I haven't really been through a big holiday season here yet. TBD.
Yet to be determined.
For my hospital, holiday coverage was, we sign up to be the team to work the holidays, and we have a main holiday and a minor holiday, but we also had a raffle going for these big holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I actually got the Thanksgiving raffle this year. But like Lupita said, next year I will not be in that raffle. So, but I got it once, so I'm happy.
We want to ask one more question regarding PTO. Do you feel as though the PTO that you have is enough? Do you feel like you're satisfied with the policies that you're given?
I definitely feel like where I'm at right now, it's definitely enough. Sometimes, like I mentioned again, tech companies might market unlimited PTO, and it really just depends. Where I'm at right now, it definitely is enough because I'm able to do it flexibly, and I feel supported by everybody when I'm taking my PTO. So it's definitely enough because it's, again, my team is great and I like where I'm at.
And Joy, do you feel that's enough?
Yeah, I feel like it's enough too. Like, I'm on PTO right now, but I felt overall pretty good coming onto the PTO. I didn't feel too burnt out. Yeah, so I feel like it's been good. Overall, the work-life balance has been pretty good the last months, and I've gotten more accustomed to some of the stress of the job, so I do feel really well compensated. But I do feel like I understand that the job is stressful, so I'm grateful to have the PTO that I have. But at this time, I feel like everything is balanced overall, so I'm happy with it.
Interesting. That's an interesting response. So now with the talking about PTO, we had this transition to one more question. This is about working more rather than working less. For overtime ability, can you describe sort of what you can do with that in your job, and can you describe with overtime how it looks at your job?
So for my job, not all jobs, but in my job we have call built in, which is kind of our overtime. So it's factored in as 2 or 4 hours depending on the call that you take. During the weekdays, it'll be like a 2 hour. It's being paid to be on the ability to come back to the hospital. They pay you for that, to be willing and ready to come back. That's factored in as kind of like 2 hours of overtime total. And then on the weekends, it's equivalent to 4 hours of overtime, and you would pick up depending on if there's any cases at the hospital. So this is built into the schedule for my hospital, but people give it away or take up someone else's call. So there's ability to work overtime, and I know one of my friends and coworkers, he picks up overtime at 2 hospitals right now. So there's a lot of ability to pick up overtime. I feel really well compensated overall, so I was picking up more in the beginning, but now I've slowed down because I feel like I'm reaching some of my financial goals, so I'm pretty happy with my overtime, but I'm satisfied overall just where I'm at.
Awesome. That's awesome to hear. And Vita, would you like to touch on that?
In terms of overtime, we don't get overtime, so we're not encouraged to work past our working hours, but because of the work-life balance and my role, people in my role are similar to me, might do like extra hobbies or side projects. They may get a second job doing other things if they feel like they want to pursue maybe extra financial goals, or they're just interested in other subject matter. I know some of my coworkers have their own businesses. I think that it's a good balance for people can work more if they want, but it wouldn't be overtime. It would just be something kind of separate from that, because we're not encouraged to work past our time.
Right.
So, and actually it was funny because recently on the team, there were people talking about, some people were doing work like on a Saturday or like later into the evening, and we had a team meeting where we all talked about like, okay, so it sounds like we need to manage our time better during the working hours. And so we started talking about productivity tips and helping people kind of feel more comfortable in being able to walk away from their work at the end of the workday, instead of having to feel like, it's not overtime because they wouldn't have been getting paid for it, but you shouldn't be working on the weekends if that's not your, we're not meant to work on the weekends, and we're not meant to work past our time. So it was fun it was the first time I've had a meeting like that where we're all just like, all right, let's talk about why people are working on the weekends, and let's make sure that we stop doing that. So
Nice.
All right, so we are gonna keep enjoying our vacation. Thank you everyone for listening, and let us know if you want to hear more.
Yeah.
My books are not open right now.
Our books are not open, unfortunately, to ask for more questions, but you can ask me some questions.
And you can relate them to me.
Yeah, and I'll relate any questions you may have about what she's talked about in terms of her job. But I feel like there's so many options for great jobs out there, so I hope that this helps someone consider their tech field or healthcare, and let us know if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Like and subscribe.